Shalom. All praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem Hawar Kadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who were well, and peace and salutation to the brothers that's out there, that's the hopeful elect that's striving with this truth and spirit and in truth. And I got pulled up as a world map. And this video that I want to get into is basically right here we have America, and then we have the Middle East in this area, this region here, primarily in this region, circling from Syria, Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Jordan. This area is concentration for what is called the Valley of Jehoshaphat, the Middle East. Now, so the United States for years now have been going back and forth with Syria. The prime minister of Syria, I believe his name is Bashir Assad. He didn't want to conform to the United States, because the United States want to run this. I believe they want to run this gas oil pipeline, and so Syria decided not to do that with them, and Syria is siding with Russia and China. And so, and Russia and China have interests together. And Russia and China, they've already stopped utilizing the U.S. dollar. Now, the United States has for many years, I believe since 1986. I'm not sure if that's the correct year, but they've been having an agreement with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is one of the number one or the largest oil distributor. So they have a agreement. So anyone who wants to buy crude oil or wants to buy oil, period, they have to first exchange their money to the US dollar, and then they can purchase oil from Saudi Arabia. And they've had this monopoly going for years. And Russia and China has threatened that, because they dump the dollar, they don't use the dollar. And if they've created the BRICS nations, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. They all don't even utilize the dollar. What they do is they have come with their own currency exchange. So they don't even use the dollar. And there's many, as we speak, countries are dumping the U.S. dollar at an alarming rate. Never has it been this many countries not utilizing the U.S. dollar. And so the United States and Russia they've been at war for years now. Not a physical war, but they've been at a monetary war. They've been going back and forth. America's cut off their natural gas sources. So during the approaching of winter times, which is an act of war, because Russia has threatened the United States business by them going in exchange of power, or going in exchange of business with Syria. And Bashir Assad, the Syrian prime minister or president, he doesn't trust the United States. He doesn't want to deal with the United States. So that's why you see all this stuff going on with ISIS. It's supposed to be they're fighting ISIS, and they basically tried to frame the Syrian president, saying he was gassing his own people when he wasn't gassing his own people. The United States, what they do is they create these militant militia groups, going back to the Taliban, or going back to Al Qaeda, and now the new boogeyman that they created, because they were all trained by the United States CIA, and provided weapons by the United States. And the same thing with ISIS. ISIS is there. It's the same project, same concept, just a new name that they slap on it. And so they calling them ISIS now, but they're trained by the United States CIA militant groups, and they're provided their weaponry. That's why when the whole situation was going down, because the United States is supposed to be the number one country leader, general on terrorism, the leading country when it comes to fighting terrorism. Right, so the United States was supposed to go in there in the border of Ukraine and Crimea, when that whole situation is taking place, was still going on with the border United States was supposed to go in there and take care of that. They didn't. So of course Russia went in there and they started bombing them and they started attacking them. And while the United States stood back watching from a distance, and Russia knows that you're the ones that's doing this. So what Russia did, because they got a whole bunch of war things going on behind the scenes that's not public, that the people don't know, but between the United States, Russia, and those who pay attention to this, the brothers that pay attention to this, you know that this what's going on, what's take place. You know by reading articles, we know by watching real true news what is coming from what stints from what, and why it's being done, because they're just minor behind the scenes acts of war leading up to the big war, World War III, which is mentioned in the Bible. So since Syria didn't want to do business, the United States sends ISIS in there, and to basically make these little false flag attacks in there to make it seem like that the Syrian government is doing this to their own people, or they're sending ISIS in there to mess up Syria's weaponry. They bombing and they're attacking certain stations in Syria. And so that's going to get Russia involved. That's going to get Iran involved. That's going to get China involved. It's all going to lead up to a big World War III. So with this going on, I want to bring out two articles. One of the articles, the first article, this was from Global Research, and it was posted. Let me see. I believe it was posted. Here we go. It was posted back in March 2nd, 2018. And also the Boiling Frogs Post did a report on it in 2014. So this is going back for many years. But I want to read a little bit of the article. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to put a link in the description for any brothers or anyone who wants to read the whole article. But I want to touch on a couple of things. It says, let me start from the top. Relevant article selected from the GR, which is the Global Research Archives, first published by GR in October 2014, sheds lights on the unfolding war in Syria, the crisis in the global state, and the confrontation between Russia and the U.S. So this goes back. This has been going on for years. This was approximately around four years ago, going on 5 years. The details are emerging of a new secret and quite stupid Saudi U.S. Now, it's funny how the writer of this article wrote Saudi the U.S. because, like I mentioned before, Saudi Arabia and the United States have had a monopoly, their agreement of making everybody purchase the U.S. dollars in order to exchange, to use the U.S. currency, dollar, to basically purchase crude oil. So if you wanted to buy oil, you had to have U.S. dollar to purchase from Saudi Arabia. So they're kind of clowning here. They're calling it Saudi U.S. on deals, Slovakia deals on Syria and the so-called ISIS. Now the writer is again clowning. He writes so-called ISIS. Why would he write that? Because he probably knows that ISIS is a United States sub-organization that was created by the United States, trained by the United States, and funded by the United States. That's why it's called so-called ISIS, because it's really a United States militia group created by the United States. It involves oil and gas control of the entire region and the weakening of Russia and Iran by Saudi Arabian flooding the world market with cheap oil. Details were concluded in the September meeting by U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry and the Saudi king. The unintended consequences will be to push Russia even faster to turn east to China and Eurasia. One of the weirdest anomalies of this recent NATO bombing campaign, allegedly against the ISIS. I say allegedly. Why is it allegedly? Because they know who's behind ISIS. So they saying it's alleged. It was a NATO allegedly bombed against ISIS. Really, or it says it, or IS, or ISIL, or Daesh because they know who's basically behind them. It says, depending on your preference, is the fact that with major war raging in the world's richest oil region, which is that Middle East area, which I started off the video highlighting, the price of crude oil has been dropped dramatically. So since June, when ISIS suddenly captured the oil-rich region of Iraq around Mosul and Kirkuk, and the benchmark Brent price of crude oil dropped some 20% to $112 to about $88. World daily demands for oil has dropped by 20%. However, China oil demands has not failed 20%, nor has U.S. domestic shale oil stock risen by 20%, 21%. So this is really not even really hurting China like that, but it's going to hurt Russia, and they're in cahoots with one another. And so basically, since people are not trying to use the U.S. dollar, and so you don't have to pay, you don't have to go directly to Saudi Arabia. What has happened is that it's triggered off a plummet in the cost of the price of oil. So you're able to get oil at dirt cheap, like wholesale prices. What has happened is that for the long time, U.S. allies inside OPEC, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, has been flooding the market with cheap discount oil, triggering the price because, like I said, some of these countries are not buying oil from them no more. So what they're saying is, oh, we're gonna open it up and we're gonna flood the market with discounted prices to try to lure countries back into buying oil from them. It says, triggering a price war with OPEC and with Iran following suit. The panic selling short oil features markets. The Saudis are targeting sales to Asia for the discount, and in particular its major Asian countries, China, wherein it reportedly offered its crude oil for a mere 50 to 60. This is that's the drop now. It went from $112 to almost half that price at $50 to $60 a barrel, rather than the earlier price around 100. The Saudis' financial discounting operations, in turn, is by all appearances being coordinated with the U.S. Treasury financial warfare operations via its Office of Terrorism and Financial Intelligence, in corporations with a handful of inside players on Wall Street who control oil derivatives trading. The result is a market panic that is gaining momentum daily. China is quite happy to buy the cheap oil, but her close allies, Russia and Iran, are being hit severely. Like I mentioned before, this is not going to bother China like that, but it does affect Russia and Iran. So basically, I just wanted to highlight that. Like I said, I wasn't trying to make this video extremely long, but it goes into breaking it down. And if you want to read, I'm gonna put the link in the description so you can read it. But it goes deeper into the meaning of what took place and what's going on. These back then, Obama's out, Trump is in now, but the major players, Putin, Bashir Assad, and Donald Trump, which I'm going to read the next article. And that's the reason why I'm not reading this whole article, because I have another article from Russia Today. I want to read that, RT News. I want to read a little bit on that article as well. But these are the main players, and Bashir Assad, he basically has sided with Putin, and Putin, they're going into business, and also, of course, China is going to be elected a part of that as well. But he went with China and not the United States. In the United States, that's why there's been so much tension and so much highlighting going on with activity in Syrian, in the borders of Syria, in the shores, in the coast of Syria. So the next article I want to get into, that was 4 years ago. This was right. This article comes from RT News, and it says U.S. slowing things down on troop withdrawal from Syria. And this was published yesterday. Actually, today. Today is the 31st. So it was published December 31st. But I'm going to read some of this too. I'm not going to read the whole article as well, or I might read majority of the article. It's not really a long article, but it goes hand in hand to see what was taking place back in 2014 and how it's still evolving today, and it's still a major. It's still going to be a major play in prophecy because it's written in the scriptures, and I'm gonna go into the scriptures after this. I'm gonna start from the top of the article. It says the U.S. troops withdrawal from Syria needs a pause in order to protect the Kurds. The potential interest of Israel and to prevent Iran from scoring a big win in Syria, which just talks about the pipeline. So because if they build that pipeline going through Syria, dealing with Iran and Russia and ultimately China as well, cutting the United States out the mix. The United States can't get in that. They can't get in on that money, that oil, because their money is running dry dealing with Saudi Arabia. So they want in on this. They wanted the whole cake on with Syria with this pipeline. It says a top GOP senator said. Now this is this article is written by a journalist, and he's going to give his perspective of it, but it all lines up to where they're going to stay because it's putting a pause. Trump has decided to slow down and not withdraw troops out of the Middle East, out of Syria. Why? Because that's the valley of Jehoshaphat. So and that's prophecy that they're going to be in that region. It says withdrawal of the U.S. military from the countries is currently in a pause situation. Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican, South Carolina, told reporters on Monday after having lunch with President Trump at the White House. And it has right here the article of what Lindsey Graham wrote with the interview. And notice that it says retired McChrystal Slam, immoral liar, Trump for pulling out of Syria, says ISIS is on the rise. Why is ISIS on the rise? That's a key point I'm going to say. ISIS is on the rise because the United States knows that they got ISIS is like their little pit bull, like that's their little warrior over there that they use to stir up mess so they can turn around and come in and act like that they're cleaning up the mess, but really they're just trying to get in so they can take over. The same thing that they did with Iraq, and how they sent Al Qaeda over there, and then the United States went over there and was supposed to be taking them down. But what they did was they invaded that whole country, took over the country, took Saddam Hussein out of power, put a puppet leader in there, and now they have control over that country. That puppet leader they set up is not for the people of Iraq, but it's going to carry out the bidding of what the United States wants them to do. And this is the same thing that they had planned to do to Syria. That's why ISIS is on the rise. It says, we talked about Syria. He told me some things I didn't know that made me feel a lot better about where we're headed in Syria, said Graham, who is an outspoken critic of Trump's decision to pull out of Syria. Think we're slowing things down in a smart way. Earlier this month, Trump announced his decision to withdraw the U.S. contingents, believed to be some 2,000 strong, from Syria, yet again claiming victory over the Islamic State, IS, formerly ISIS. They change the names all the time. Terrorist groups in the country. Graham believes the group was not actually defeated, and the president promised to destroy it again. Yeah, of course it's not going to be defeated because it's their own group. They're putting them in there. So of course it ain't going to be defeated. They're not going to never defeat them because they need them. They utilize them. So no matter how much ISIS members that they so-called kill or destroy, they're still going to have more ISIS members because they need ISIS. ISIS is their secret group. So of course they're not going to take them all out. They're just if they're even taking them out to begin with. It says he promised to destroy ISIS. He's going to keep that promise. We're not there yet, said the senator. Apart from that, Trump is worried about the potential dangers to Israel and will work with Ankara to ensure that we don't have a war between the Turks and our allies, the Kurds, Graham reveals. And it says we still have some differences, but I will tell you that the president is thinking long and hard about Syria. Of course he is. How to withdraw our forces, but at the same time achieve our national security interest. Which is what? What is your national security interest? To try to get as many countries as you can as allies, even though those allies are going to turn against you in the end. But more importantly, to diffuse their nuclear capabilities and to take over their land and to absorb all their resources. That's their national security interest of the United States. And also control the world market of finances, which are to make sure ISIS is destroyed. They never come back, that our allies, the Kurds, are protected, and that Iran doesn't become the big winner of our leaving, he said. It ain't about that. It's not even about that, because in the end, you already have plans to invade Iran. I forget the name of the video, but it was a general that had a conversation with the top leader that expressed that I believe it was 5 countries in 7 years that the United States had planned on invading and overtaking, which the final one was Iran. You already have plans on invading Iran. So of course this is just blowing smoke right here. You already planning on, they're already on your list of countries that you want to invade, which is why, because the United States, they know Russia's their big brother, but they're gonna get so far into World War III that they're not gonna care. They're just gonna say, fuck it. Most likely gonna have the angels play on these leaders to go in and just invade Iran. And then that's when Russia and China gets involved and World War III pops off. But it's all going to happen because you're already out there in the Middle East. The Trump abrupt decision to withdraw from Syria has drawn bipartisan ire, as well as triggering a warmongering meltdown in the media. Graham himself has demanded hearing on the Syrian move, as well as on Trump's decision to scale down the U.S. military presence in Afghanistan, because you're not going nowhere. You're not going to pull the troops out. Why? Because the Most High said that you're going to be going into that land, not coming out of that land. So ultimately, it's the will of the Most High why you're not pulling out. This is just a purpose. The oil and what's going on financially is just a purpose. But the real reason is because the Most High said that you're gonna go into that land. So you're gonna be judged in that land. So this is Joel, the 3rd chapter. I'm gonna pick it up at the 9th verse, but if you have a chance, any brothers watching this, starting from the top, it's all meat. But I just want to pick it up from here at the 9th verse, because I got just a few scriptures, and I'm gonna bring this video to a close, and I'm gonna post the article so brothers can see it. This is Joel 3:9. It says, "Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war. Wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up." Where are they coming up to? To the Middle East. That same region that I pointed out right here. This whole area here. That's where they're coming up to. And that's where they're preparing for war. It says, "Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong." Who are the weak? The weak are these other nations that didn't have the military outfit that the United States have. They weren't fully equipped with as far as technology and manpower. to hang with a superpower country like the United States. But the Most High has put a game changer into play, which is called the nuclear missiles, ICBM missiles. These countries are developing a nuclear program so they can have nuclear capabilities, ICBM missiles at their arsenal. So therefore, that's how they become strong. They're no longer weak. They don't have to have a man-to-man, tank-on-tank combat with the United States. They don't need the manpower. They have the nuclear power. So they become as strong as the superpowers. Verse 11, assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathens, and gather yourselves together round about thither. Cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord. Let the heathens be awakened, and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat. That's Yahweh Mashaphat, means the Most High judgment. The Most High will rain judgment. It says, for there will I sit to judge all the heathens round about. It says, put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come get you down, for the press is full, the fats overflow, and their wickedness is great. So therefore, the Most High is saying, hey, bring them all in this region, because I'm going to judge them. I'm going to have them go to war, and I'm going to have these countries destroy America, because that's what World War III is. And those troops that are in the Middle East are going to be put to death. All those United States troops. Verse 14, it says, multitudes in the valley of decision. The valley of decision is the Middle East. For the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision. Because the valley of decision is where the Most High is going to decide to judge you. So this is Jeremiah 50. Because like I spoke of earlier, the United States and Russia have been doing this. They've been this war, this slow dance to war, but they're gonna start dancing fast. They're gonna actually get down. So, but like I said, they just been throwing little acts of war, but not actual act of war. They've just been, putting sanctions on them, and they've been cutting off their natural gas sources to keep their people, to provide the natural energy to keep their people in Russia warm during the winters. It's just little punk moves that ain't real war moves. Like two guys standing in front of each other getting ready to fight, and instead of just pushing or punching one of them, he's flinching at them. That's what's been going. They be flinching at each other, but they're gonna lock horns. And this is going to be the outcome. This is Jeremiah 50:9. It says, for lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon. Babylon represents the modern day Babylon is America. And a symbol of a great nation from the north country. So let's go back to the map right quick. America's here. Over here is Russia. Russia is north. It's northeast of the United States. They're going to shoot missiles from here, Russia, all the way over to America. China, all the way over to America. Iran, all the way over to America. Syria, all the way over to America. And all these UN nations that's going to turn on America, they all going to be shooting missiles from all over this side of the country, the east, over to the west. All right, it says, I'm going to pick it up back from the top. It says, for lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon, an assembly of great nations from the north country, and they shall set themselves in array against her. From thence she shall be taken. Their arrows shall be as a mighty expert man. None shall return in vain. So it says none shall return in vain. So those arrows represent nuclear missiles. And when it says none shall return in vain, I'm going to read this quick scripture in Joel, the 2nd chapter. This is talking about the nuclear missiles, because it said none of them will return in vain. So this is Joel 2:7 says, They shall run like mighty men. Speaking about the nuclear missiles, because when you read up in this, it talks about a army. An army, and an army is represent. It's not men, but the army is. It's like a metaphor, but they're not talking about actual men. They're talking about missiles, which is the army. So this right here, particularly, is talking about these missiles. But the prophet Joel, when he described it as an army, and he described it as how of what he knew, which was in the ancient days, men would shoot bow and arrows, which is why Jeremiah said arrows. He didn't say missiles, nuclear missiles. It looked like an arrow in the sky to him when he saw the vision. Same thing with Joel. When Joel see the vision, it was like men jumping over and invading a village. Like if you saw men shooting arrows over, and you saw men climbing the walls, going over someone's borders and taking down their land. So he described it in that way, but it's really talking about the nuclear missiles. It says, they shall run like mighty men, they shall climb the walls like men of war, and they shall march every one on his way, meaning each one is gonna go to a certain destination. They shall not break their ranks, meaning like what Jeremiah said. It says, their arrows shall be as a mighty expert man, none returning in vain, meaning they're gonna hit their mark. Wherever the part of the land they're designed to hit, they hit that mark. They're not gonna return in vain. And Joel said they're not gonna break their ranks, which means none of them is gonna malfunction. None of them is gonna run into another missile. None of them are going to like go off course and hit a whole nother country or a whole nother land. One landing in Canada or Mexico, it's gonna land in the United States. So they're not gonna break their ranks. It says, neither shall one thrust another. They're not going to crash against each other. They shall walk every one in his path, because his path has a destination, so it's going to hit its mark. And when they fall upon the sword, they shall not be wounded. Meaning he didn't see them wounding themselves, because this is a missile. The missile is just going to blow up and blow up that part of the land, whichever part of the land it was aimed to hit in the United States. They shall run to and fro in the city. They shall run upon the walls. They shall climb upon the houses. They shall enter into the windows like a thief. And this was all the description of what Joel seen in his vision. That's what the missiles did. So back to Jeremiah. It says, verse 10, it says, and Chaldea shall be a spoil, and all that spoil her shall be satisfied. Thus saith the Lord, speaking of America. Because ye were glad, because ye rejoice, O ye destroyers of mine heritage, because ye are grown fat as the heifer at grass, and bellows as bulls, your mother shall be sore confounded. She that bare you shall be ashamed. Behold, it's talking about Great Britain, because Great Britain is the mother of America. It says, she that bare you shall be ashamed. Behold, the hindermost of the nations shall be a wilderness and a dry land and a desert. Because of the wrath of the Lord, it shall not be inhabited, but it shall be wholly desolate. Every one that goeth by Babylon shall be astonished and hiss at her plagues. Put yourselves in array. So this is another vision of Jeremiah describing exactly what he saw in the vision. It says, put yourselves in array against Babylon round about, all ye that bend the bow. So all the nations with nuclear missile capabilities aim towards the land to hit in America. It says, all ye that bend the bow, shoot at her, spare no arrows, for she has sinned against the Lord. So the Most High told every single nation that has developed nuclear missiles, shoot all those missiles at America. And the total of those missiles are 200 million missiles that are going to hit the land of the United States. So I'm going to read these last few verses. I'm going to bring it to a close. It says, put yourselves in array against Babylon round about, all ye that bend the bow, shoot at her, spare no arrow, for she had sinned against the Lord. Shout against her round about. She had given her hand, her foundations are fallen, her walls are thrown down. For it is the vengeance of the Lord. Taketh vengeance upon her, as she had done, do unto her. Cut off the sword from Babylon, and him that hindereth the sickle in the time of the harvest. Speaking about that again. It spoke about that in Joel. Because the harvest, basically the time is right. The fruit is ripe to be picked and to be eaten. So America is ripe. It's going to be picked, meaning other nations are going to pick America off with their nuclear missiles, and they're going to destroy America, representing the eating of a fruit, to use an analogy. It says, for fear of the oppressing sword, they shall turn everyone to his people, and they shall flee everyone to his land. So with that, I'm going to bring this video to a close. I hope that it was edifying to those who were able to tune in, and everything is coming about, prophetically. All the prophecies are lining up, one after another, on top of one another, meaning prophecies that were spoken about are happening, and then more things are happening to enhance the prophecy that was already told that these things were going to come to pass. So it's just more and more evidence for those out there who's seeing the truth, and you haven't made the transformation of coming into the truth. All the writing is there. It's all there for you. Don't slack. Don't tarry to turn to the Lord, because we live in electrifying times, and that's a quote that I like to say a lot, because it's all about the elect, because the elect is the only ones that's going to make it out of here where the Most High is going to bestow his tender mercies upon and save. So these times are for the elect to see everything that's happened, for the elect I'm going to say hopeful elect, for the hopeful elect to see what's happening, match what's happening in life and existence to what the scriptures are saying, and so it will build your faith, so you know that they're faithful and true what is written in the scriptures. These are electrifying times, because the Most High is going to provide for his elect during these times, going into the trials and the tribulation that the elect is going to endure, and then ultimately the Most High is going to up and destroy and up and save his elect. So with that, I want to say, Kal Halal Yahweh Bashim Yahushai Bahashim HaRakwakadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well, and peace and salutations to the hopeful elect that's striving for salvation. Shalom.